My brother-in-law just told my wife he is in love with her. Best Reddit stories, Reddit family. Please stay with me as I tell my story. And please, do not forget to support our channel by subscribing to our channel, liking our videos, and sharing your loved one. Your support means the world to us. Now to our story. Poke. I came home late from work, tired and ready to collapse into bed. The house was quiet except for a low murmur coming from the living room. I thought maybe Emily had fallen asleep on the couch with the TV on, but when I got closer, I realized it wasn't the television, it was voices. I stopped in the hallway, just out of sight. It was Emily and Ryan, my younger brother-in-law. I could hear their laughter, soft and private, the kind you only share when you're comfortable with someone. My stomach tightened. Then I heard Ryan's voice, clear and steady. I've been in love with you since before you and Mark even got married. I froze. Every muscle locked up. The words didn't feel real at first, like I'd walked into someone else's life. I waited for Emily to shut him down, to tell him he was out of line, but she didn't. Instead, she gave a little laugh. Not awkward, not shocked, flattered. Ryan, she said, drawing out his name like it was sweet on her tongue. They both chuckled again, and then Ryan added, "You have no idea how hard it was to watch you walk down the aisle with him." Emily didn't push back. She didn't say it was wrong. She didn't even change the subject. She let it sit there, as if she liked the thought. My chest felt tight, my breathing shallow. I was just a few feet away from them, yet it felt like I was miles outside my own marriage. I pressed myself against the wall, afraid to move, afraid they'd see me, but also afraid of what else I might hear. They kept talking in low tones, voices dipping in and out of laughter. I caught fragments, jokes about what could have been, little teases about how things might have turned out differently. It wasn't a one-sided confession anymore. It was a shared fantasy, and my wife wasn't shutting the door on it. In that moment, something inside me cracked. This wasn't a random drunken slip, and it wasn't a harmless joke. There was a history in his words, and there was interest in hers. I didn't know how deep it went, but I knew enough to feel the floor tilt beneath me. I stood there for what felt like forever, listening, unable to interrupt, unable to walk away. My hands shook. My jaw clenched so hard it hurt. I wanted to storm in and demand answers, but part of me needed to hear just how far this went. When their laughter died down, I stepped back quietly, my heartbeat pounding in my ears. I didn't go into the living room. I didn't say goodnight. I just went upstairs, sat in the dark, and tried to make sense of how my life had shifted in a single conversation I was never meant to hear. The next morning, I acted like nothing had happened. My voice was steady, my smile was there, but it wasn't real. Inside, my mind kept replaying what I had overheard. Every time I looked at Emily, I remembered the way she had sounded with Ryan. Still, I kept quiet. I wanted to see what she would do when she thought I didn't know. Over the next few days, little things started to stand out. Emily's phone was always lighting up. Sometimes she would be cooking, folding laundry, or even brushing her hair, and she'd stop to check it. The messages made her smirk or let out a small laugh. When I asked who it was, she always had a quick answer, usually just a friend or nothing important. Ryan began showing up more often than usual. At first it was small things, dropping something off, coming by to borrow tools. Then it turned into helping Emily with grocery runs, fixing small things around the house, or going with her to pick up stuff for the garden. He never asked me if I wanted to come along. Whenever I walked into a room where they were talking, the conversation stopped almost instantly. Sometimes they would exchange a quick glance before one of them changed the subject. It wasn't obvious enough for anyone else to notice, but I saw it every time. It was like they had their own language, little looks, half smiles, quick pauses, things they thought I couldn't read. At night, the space between Emily and me seemed to grow wider. We used to sit together, talk about our days, maybe watch a show. Now, she often sat on her phone or scrolled through her laptop. If I tried to start a conversation, her answers were short, like she was distracted by something else. When Ryan wasn't at the house, he was still in it, through her phone. I could see his name flash on the screen when she forgot to turn it over. Their messages came at all hours. Once, I woke up at 2 in the morning and saw her still typing away in the dim glow of the screen. When I asked why she was awake, she just said she couldn't sleep. I started to notice she was dressing differently, too. A little more makeup when she went out, even if it was just for errands. Clothes she hadn't worn in months suddenly appeared in rotation again. When I mentioned it, she brushed it off with a laugh, saying she was just trying something new. Every sign pointed in the same direction, but I didn't react. I kept my voice calm, my questions casual. Inside, though, I was watching everything, each smile, each pause, each excuse. I wasn't ready to confront her yet. I wanted to see how far it would go when she thought I was still in the dark. And with each passing day, the distance between us stopped feeling like an accident and started feeling like a choice. One evening, while Emily was making dinner, I decided to bring it up as casually as I could. I leaned against the counter and asked, "Have you noticed Ryan's been around a lot lately?" I kept my tone light, almost like it was just small talk. She looked up from the cutting board, her hands still busy, and said, "What's that supposed to mean?" Her voice had a sharp edge to it. I told her I was just wondering if something was going on, if he needed help with something, maybe. Emily put the knife down and crossed her arms. "He's just family, Mark. You're reading into things." She shook her head like I'd said something ridiculous. "You're acting paranoid," she added, and then turned back to the vegetables as if the conversation was over. I didn't push. I let it drop, but the way she reacted told me more than her words did. She'd gotten defensive fast, too fast for someone with nothing to hide. Later that night, I was heading to the bedroom and saw the faint glow of her phone lighting up her face. She was lying on her side, smiling at the screen. It wasn't a polite smile or a quick laugh. It was the kind of smile you give when you feel close to someone. As soon as she noticed me in the doorway, she tilted the phone away and hit the lock button. "What are you doing up?" she asked quickly, like she was trying to steer the focus off the phone. "Just getting some water," I said, pretending I hadn't noticed. But I had, and now I couldn't let it go. From that night on, I became more watchful. I didn't want to accuse her without proof, so I waited for chances to see what she was hiding. When she left her phone on the counter to grab something from the other room, I'd glance at the screen. If she went to take a shower, I'd quietly pick it up and scroll. It didn't take long to find what I was looking for. The messages between her and Ryan weren't outright romantic, but they weren't harmless either. He'd send lines like, "Wish we could hang out just us," or "You always make my day better." She'd reply with things like, "You're sweet," or "You know I love talking to you." Mixed in with the casual chats were little private jokes and late-night conversations about how they felt misunderstood, or more connected, with each other than with other people. There were no direct declarations, but the tone was clear. They were building something personal, something they didn't want me to see. Reading those words made my chest tighten. It wasn't physical proof of cheating, but it was a kind of betrayal all the same. I locked her phone, set it back exactly how I found it, and acted like nothing had happened. But inside, the crack between us had just split wider. A few nights later, I decided I couldn't just keep the messages to myself. I waited until we were both home, no distractions, and told Emily we needed to talk. She was sitting on the couch scrolling through her phone when I pulled mine out and opened the screenshots I'd taken. "I've been seeing these messages between you and Ryan," I said, holding the screen toward her. "Tell me what this is." She glanced at it for barely a second before leaning back with a sigh. "Seriously, Mark? You're going through my phone now." "That's not the point," I told her. "Look at the way you talk to him. Look at the way he talks to you. This isn't normal." She rolled her eyes. "You're blowing this way out of proportion. Ryan jokes like that with everyone. It's just how he is." "That's not a joke," I said. "Those are personal conversations." Emily crossed her arms. "You've always had this jealousy thing. You read too much into everything. I can't even talk to my own family without you twisting it." It was like she wasn't even seeing the same words I was showing her. She wasn't explaining, she was turning it around, making it about me. She kept repeating that Ryan was just being playful, that I needed to trust her, that I was imagining something that wasn't there. By the time she was done, she had managed to make herself the victim, and me the unreasonable. I didn't argue anymore. I closed my phone, said fine, and let it drop. But inside, I wasn't convinced. If anything, her reaction made me feel more certain that something was going on. A week later, we were at a family barbecue at her parents' place. Ryan was there, of course, and he was acting like nothing had happened. At one point, I stepped away to grab another drink, and Ryan followed me toward the cooler. When no one else was within earshot, he leaned slightly toward me, a small smirk pulling at his mouth. "You can't control who she talks to, you know," he said in a low voice. I stared at him. What's that supposed to mean? He just shrugged, still smiling, like it was some inside joke only he understood. Then he walked off, leaving me standing there with the drink in my hand, heat building in my chest. That one sentence told me everything I needed to know. He wasn't clueless about how his behavior looked. He wasn't just being friendly. He knew exactly what he was doing, and he was confident enough to say it to my face. From that moment, I stopped wondering if I was imagining things. I knew I wasn't, and I knew this wasn't going to stop on its own. One afternoon, I got off work earlier than usual. I didn't tell Emily I was coming home ahead of time. I figured I'd surprise her, maybe catch a quiet moment together before dinner. As soon as I opened the front door, I heard voices coming from the kitchen. I recognized both instantly, Emily and Ryan. I moved slowly, my footsteps light on the hallway floor. I stopped just before the doorway. Ryan's voice was clear, low, and certain. If you weren't married, we'd be perfect together. There was no hesitation in his tone. It wasn't a joke. It wasn't casual. He meant it. Emily's response came right after, and it wasn't shocked or offended. She gave a soft laugh, the kind that carries warmth, not discomfort. Maybe in another life, she said, like it was a sweet thought instead of something that should never be spoken. I felt my pulse in my ears. My jaw locked, but I stayed still. Then I saw it, Ryan's hand lightly brushing against hers as they stood side by side at the counter. She didn't pull away. She didn't even look surprised. She just let it happen. It wasn't a long touch, but it said enough. I knew now that this wasn't just about words or late-night messages. They had stepped into a space that crossed every line, even if they hadn't gone further yet. The way they stood together, the way they spoke, it was too familiar, too intimate. My first instinct was to walk in, slam my bag on the counter, and demand an explanation right there. But I didn't. I kept my position in the hallway, silent, hidden. The more I listened, the more I realized that another confrontation would only lead to the same deflection and denial I'd already seen. They didn't notice me. They just kept talking, voices dropping lower, but their tone stayed the same, comfortable, light, as if there was nothing wrong. I stayed until I couldn't take another second of it. Without a sound, I backed away, step by step, until I was far enough to open the front door again. I slipped out, pulling it shut quietly behind me. I didn't slam it, didn't make a scene. I just walked to my car and sat there for a few minutes, staring at the steering wheel. It was in that moment that something shifted inside me. I stopped thinking about confronting them again. I stopped hoping Emily would suddenly come to her senses. I stopped expecting the truth to come out on its own. If I wanted to end this, I couldn't do it with arguments. I needed to be careful. I needed to gather more than feelings and suspicions. I needed something solid, something they couldn't twist around. By the time I started the car, I had made up my mind. From now on, I wasn't just watching. I was planning. The next day, I walked into the house like nothing had happened. I smiled, I asked about their day, I even joked with Ryan when he came over. If either of them suspected I'd overheard anything the day before, they didn't show it. I made sure I gave them no reason to think I was suspicious. Inside, I was cold and focused. I decided that the only way to deal with this was to collect proof, clear, undeniable proof that couldn't be brushed off as jokes or misunderstanding. I started with the easiest thing, their messages. Whenever Emily left her phone unattended, I took screenshots. I kept them in a hidden folder on my own device. It wasn't just the sweet comments or the private jokes. It was the way they spoke late at night, the subtle hints about wishing things were different, the times Ryan suggested meeting up alone. Next, I began recording their conversations. I bought a small audio recorder that fit in my pocket and could also be left on a shelf. Whenever Ryan came over, I'd find a way to leave it nearby. I caught snippets of them talking in lowered voices, making little digs about me, sharing inside jokes that had no place between a married woman and her brother-in-law. Then I started digging into something I hadn't thought about before, money. I went through our joint bank statements and credit card bills. That's when I saw it. Withdrawals and payments I didn't recognize. Small amounts at first, then larger ones. When I asked Emily casually about a couple of them, she brushed it off, saying she'd helped Ryan out because he was going through a rough patch. She hadn't told me before she did it, and some of the amounts weren't small. I took copies of everything, statements, receipts, transfers. I stored them with the screenshots and the audio file. The more I found, the more it felt like I was piecing together a picture they thought I'd never see. I also made a quiet call to a lawyer. I didn't give every detail right away, but I explained enough for him to understand the situation. He told me to keep gathering evidence and to act like I suspected nothing. The calmer I stayed, the less likely they were to hide what they were doing. So that's what I did. I became almost overly friendly. I'd offer Ryan a beer when he came over, ask Emily if she and Ryan had fun on their errands, even encourage them to hang out when I had things to do. It wasn't easy. Every smile felt fake, every laugh forced, but I knew it was working. They thought I'd let it go. They thought I wasn't paying attention anymore, but I was watching closer than ever, and I was almost ready to make my move. The night of the family dinner, I felt calm. I'd been patient for weeks, gathering everything I needed, and now I was ready. Emily thought it was just another get-together. Ryan was already there when we arrived, leaning back in his chair like he owned the place. We ate, we talked, and I kept my voice steady. No one had any idea what I was about to do. I didn't rush it. I let the evening play out, salad, main course, small talk. I waited until dessert was being served, the point in the night when everyone was relaxed, happy, and settled in. When the plates were set down, I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. Without saying a word, I connected it to the TV in the dining room. The screen lit up, and in seconds the first image appeared, one of the many screenshots I'd saved. At first, people didn't understand what they were seeing. Then the text started scrolling. Ryan's words to Emily, Emily's replies to him. The casual flirting, the wish you were here messages, the little late-night talks. I didn't narrate. I didn't need to. The words spoke for themselves. A few seconds later, I played the audio clips. Ryan's voice low and familiar, saying things like, "You're the only one who gets me, and if you weren't married, we'd be perfect." Emily's voice laughing, agreeing, never once shutting him down. The room went silent except for the recordings. No one touched their food. Eyes darted between the screen, Ryan, and Emily. Ryan's face drained of color. He started stammering, trying to laugh it off, saying things were taken out of context. But his voice cracked, and no one was buying it. Emily looked around the table, panic in her eyes. "Mark, stop," she said sharply. "This isn't what it looks like." Her voice shook as she reached for my arm. I didn't move. More texts, more clips, even a couple of photos from when they'd been out running errands together. Pictures I'd pulled from social media and matched with dates from my record. By now, everyone's faces told the same story: shock, disappointment, disbelief. Emily's parents looked frozen. Ryan's smirk was long gone. Emily's voice got louder. "Mark, please. Stop this right now." She tried to stand, but I stayed seated, my eyes never leaving the screen. When the last clip finished, I disconnected my phone. I didn't explain. I didn't yell. I just stood up, slid my chair back, and walked toward the door. No one tried to stop me. The only sounds behind me were Ryan's muttered excuses and Emily's shaky voice calling my name. I didn't turn around. I stepped outside into the cool night air, got into my car, and drove away without looking back. Within a couple of days after that dinner, Emily packed her things and moved back in with her parents. She didn't leave a note or an explanation. She didn't have to. Everyone in the family had seen what happened. The whispers started immediately, and it was clear she couldn't stay in the house with me. Ryan didn't get off easy either. The same relatives who used to laugh at his jokes and invite him everywhere suddenly stopped answering his calls. He wasn't welcome at family gathering. When people did talk to him, it was short and cold. The smugness I'd seen in him before was gone. Emily started calling me almost every day. At first, I let it go to voicemail. Then I stopped answering at all. Her messages were always the same. She was crying, saying I'd misunderstood everything, claiming that nothing physical had happened between her and Ryan. She kept repeating that they were just close, and it had gotten out of hand. I didn't respond. I wasn't interested in hearing excuses or picking apart her words. I'd seen enough to know where her loyalty had been, and it wasn't with me. Instead, I spent my time talking to my lawyer, moving forward with the divorce paperwork. Every day that passed made me more certain I was doing the right thing. One afternoon, Ryan showed up outside my workplace. I saw him leaning against his car, looking uncomfortable. When I walked past, he called my name. "Mark, wait. I need to say something." I stopped but didn't move closer. "Make it quick." He looked at the ground for a second before meeting my eyes. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean for it to go that far. I wasn't trying to ruin your marriage." I stared at him. "You took my wife the moment you decided she was yours to want." He flinched, but I didn't soften my tone. "You knew exactly what you were doing, and you did it anyway." He started to speak again, but I walked past him and kept going. I wasn't interested in his side of the story. There was nothing he could say that would erase what had happened. By the end of that week, I'd signed the first round of divorce documents. I moved some of my belongings into storage and started making plans for a new place. Emily kept trying to reach me, but I blocked her number. The silence after that was the cleanest it had felt in months. No more hidden glances, no more fake smiles, just me moving forward and leaving both of them behind to deal with what they'd done. About 2 weeks later, I got a call from a mutual friend I hadn't heard from in a while. We talked for a few minutes about normal things before his voice dropped, like he was about to share something he wasn't sure I knew. "Did you hear about Ryan?" he asked. I said no, and he told me Ryan had been fired from his job. Not for poor performance, not for layoffs. He'd been caught stealing from the company. I didn't react right away. I just let him keep talking. He explained that it had been going on for months, maybe longer, and the company finally had enough proof to let him go. He'd left in disgrace, and word was already spreading fast. Then came the second piece of news. My friend said, "You know Emily was giving him money, right?" I froze. "What do you mean?" She told a couple of people she'd been helping him out. Said he was struggling, so she covered some bills for him. Suddenly, all the unexplained withdrawals and random payments I'd found before made sense. She hadn't just been spending time with him behind my back. She'd been giving him our money. My friend went on to say it wasn't just once or twice. Emily had been giving him money regularly for months. Sometimes in cash, sometimes through transfers. Always without telling me. The picture became clear in my head. Ryan had been working his way into her trust, making her feel close to him, and then using that connection to get what he wanted. He hadn't only been undermining my marriage emotionally, he'd been exploiting her financially the whole time. I thought back to the way she defended him whenever I brought up concerns, how she brushed off the missing money as helping him out. It wasn't just loyalty, it was manipulation. Ryan had managed to make her feel like she was the only one who could save him. all while tearing down my relationship with. Hearing it confirmed from someone else was both infuriating and oddly satisfying. It meant I'd been right all along, not just about the feelings between them, but about his motives. He wasn't some lovesick fool who got carried away. He was calculated. He took what he could get from both of us and didn't care about the damage left behind. When I hung up the phone, I didn't feel tempted to reach out to Emily. I didn't feel like confronting Ryan again either. They'd both chosen their roles in this. Now they could deal with the fallout together, without my name attached to either of them. All I knew was that whatever game Ryan thought he was winning, it was about to end. Once I knew about Ryan stealing from his company and taking money from Emily, I decided to make sure his problems didn't stop there. I still had all the bank records, the transfer history, and even some of Emily's texts about helping him out. It was enough to show that what he'd done wasn't just bad judgment, it was illegal. I gathered everything into one folder. Screenshots, statements, notes with dates and amounts. Then I sent it all anonymously to the authorities. I didn't need them to know my name. The evidence spoke for itself. It didn't take long before I heard he was being investigated. A couple of weeks later, word spread that charges might be coming. Ryan stopped showing up anywhere public, and from what I heard, he was scrambling to find a way out of it. That's when I decided to give him a parting gift. I took one of our old wedding photos, the kind where Emily was smiling wide, her arm linked through mine. I had it edited so my face was replaced with Ryan's. Underneath, I had a single line printed. "You always wanted this. Now you can keep the memories." I mailed it to him without a return address. I didn't expect him to respond, and he didn't. I imagined the look on his face when he opened it and knew I'd made my point without saying a word. Not long after, Emily tried to contact me again. This time, she didn't call. She sent a long text. She wrote that she regretted everything, that she'd made a mistake, that she wished she could take it back. She said she missed me and hoped we could talk. I stared at the message for a while before typing back 2 short words. "So do I." Then I blocked her number. I didn't want another message, another excuse, or another tear-filled voicemail. I had spent enough time on both of them. The day the divorce was finalized, I felt lighter. It wasn't happiness exactly, but it was freedom. There were no more secrets hanging over me, no more pretending I didn't see what was right in front of me. Ryan could deal with the investigation, the loss of his job, and the family that no longer wanted him around. Emily could sit with the choices she made and the trust she'd thrown away. None of it was my problem anymore. I walked away knowing I hadn't just let them get away with it. I'd made sure the truth came out, and I'd left them both with consequences they couldn't talk their way out of. And for the first time in months, I didn't look back.